My name is Thomas Vale, or at least it was. I'm a photographer. I had it all. A wife, Allison, friends, a career. And in one moment, it was all taken away. All because of a single photograph. I have it. They want it. And they will do anything to get the negative.
Once I saw the first episode, I was hooked as a fan. And the reason I was is because, again, I think the concept of Nowhere Man is so different, so ahead of its time. And Bruce brought so much to the character. And the writing was great. You got good writing, you got good acting, you're going to have a hit show. You know, I mean, that's basically what it's all about.
Look, I would really like to get better at this than I clearly am.
What would it cost me just for some starter lessons, you know, just for your basic photography one-on-one kind of thing?
How about some dry clothes and an Italian dinner?
Don't cook.
Then we're safe. It's on me.
I didn't know Larry, I didn't know Joel, I didn't really know anybody connected with the show. They must have looked at my resume or seen something that I had done and thought I might be appropriate for the show, and it worked out. That is, frankly, more often than not, how you get a job in episodic television.
I wasn't that familiar with the show because I don't think when I got hired to do this episode that it had aired yet. I knew about it because I knew what shows were ordered, and UPN was in its infancy at the time. But maybe it takes somebody starting out to take a shot on such an unusual show as Nowhere Man was, because I think when you're doing something that is creatively different from the norm, you might have a hard time selling it to the networks, who really try very hard to find almost a homogeneous kind of a show that can appeal to the widest possible audience, since the whole game is on Nielsen ratings.
As I recall, Nowhere Man was fairly well organized. We didn't have like great crises that we were facing other than getting ourselves out of a couple of story holes once in a while, but that's such difficult material to sustain because of the odd nature of the mystery involved from week to week. But you do have to get to know people. You have to wheedle, cajole, and persuade to get things done, and use sort of all the resources of your charm all the time with new people. And when you meet the actors, you have to kind of size up rather quickly. Sometimes you can do it with discussion with producers or other directors who work on the show. Who needs to be treated in what way? They have to get to know you. You can't really force getting to know them. You have to give them a little while to get to know you. So that sort of being thrown into the new party like that week after week after week is the toughest part of the episodic director's challenge.
Who are you? What the hell do you want?
Now, Tommy boy, is that any way to talk to your one and only hand-picked, self-appointed guardian angel?
I didn't give any direction to Dean Stockwell. Dean Stockwell knew where he was with his character on every single page of that script.
I asked you a question.
Peter Dunn and I had a dinner with Dean the night he got into Portland, and it was very clear early on that Dean had a vision, because I started talking about something, and he says, "Well, wait a minute," and he goes off, and he had every single beat worked out. So there was no need to direct Dean, other than, you know, you went out of frame on that shot, Dean. Can you just stay in frame? And you know, someone like Dean, you're not going to do that unless he's totally just way off, and he wasn't.
I realize my actions appear contradictory, Tommy boy, but trust me, I've got your best interest at heart.
I'm sure.
And Bruce knew the character. You're 9 episodes in. You know, you're not going to start directing Bruce. You can have conceptual conversations with Bruce about maybe we should take this direction, maybe with that, and then Bruce will think about it, and you know, he knows his character much better than you do, and he'll say, okay, yeah, or no, I want to stay with this, and you know, that's what you do. We were shooting an all-nighter, which meant we were going to shoot all night and into the morning at this hotel, to me, in the middle of nowhere. And it's a scene where Bruce and Dean, Gus and Tom, get drunk and basically spill their guts to each other about life and what's happening and all the other stuff.
It was really well written. I read the script the first time. Oh, yeah.
He came to me early on in the day and said, listen, in that scene that I'm supposed to be drunk, I'm gonna just take a drink, you know, way early. before we shoot the scene, just to get a little buzz.
Just to sort of get that kind of little fat lip thing going where you're just a little, you're just a little, you can just feel it a little, right?
Because playing drunk is not as easy as people think it is, and I just want to make sure it's authentic. I said, no, it's no problem. So I'm going to take a drink before lunch, and we weren't going to get to the scene till well after lunch, so fine. So apparently Bruce goes back to his trailer and he takes a shot of vodka or whatever drink he was going to have, and we break for lunch. And unbeknownst to me, Bruce apparently felt like, well, God, I'm going to rehearse this scene, and I don't feel anything. And so I'm going to take another shot. So he takes another shot. He and Dean come out. We rehearse the scene. We get it blocked. We know exactly where we're going to go. And it's probably going to take about a good 30, 40 minutes to light it because it's such a small location.
We didn't start shooting until like 2 in the morning, actually. Yeah. And by then, I'd had more than a fifth.
And Bruce isn't feeling anything. So he decides to take another shot, and apparently another shot, and maybe even one more shot. By the time we're mid-scene, Bruce is smashed. I mean, Bruce is absolutely hammered.
I saw the train coming in, bam, and I was...
You didn't know who you were?
Hammered.
Yeah.
Hammered. Just drunk, was just drunk on my feet. Could barely stand up.
At one point, he lost his lunch out in the back, and he's apologized. Oh, Maya, I'm so sorry. I'll do the thing. And he's going on and on and on.
And I knew I was drunk, but I was terribly embarrassed, right? And I kept apologizing to everybody, and they had to fed me the lines to this beautiful monologue, one after the other, like line by line by line.
Having somebody that you love just look at you like they've never even seen you before in their life.
But the scene was about him being drunk. And Dean is just going, oh my God, I feel so sorry for him. He thought he would do something to kind of help the scene along, and Dean was very sympathetic. But Bruce is absolutely, if it looks really good, like Bruce is, God, he plays a great drunk in that scene. It's because he is drunk. And we couldn't figure out how he knew the lines. Because even though he was stammering and slurring his speech, he still got the lines out.
You're wrong. That is something I will never forget.
Oh, no. No, you won't forget it. As a matter of fact, it'll haunt you every time you close your eyes.
So he did my coverage first, and it was terrible. It was maudlin and melodramatic and overdone and hideous. And I said to Dean, do you want me to stay for the off camera? And he goes, no, pal, go home.
I think we spent a lot of time talking about how to make the plot of a story that was tricky, plausible. I find myself sort of obsessing sometimes over details that I feel need to be set up more clearly in order for certain payoffs to happen. There were logistical problems shooting and preparing those big-scale scenes with all the kids doing their choreography out on the field, the calisthenics that had to be taught to them, and the whole point was how precise it was. They were supposed to be as close to being automatons as possible. So it wasn't like it could be sloppy. It had to be crisp and perfect. And that sequence and the sequence inside the church, the chapel, where they sing and they all have to stand up and march, and you have to get them to the final position by the last beat of the music. Those were unusual production challenges in an episode.
I ran a check on you when I got back to town. Couldn't find squat on anybody named Jack Griffin.
Aside from getting the story to ring right, because of this very odd circumstance of this guy with kind of no background and nobody who can count on, and he's in a new circumstance every week, it was tricky to get the story right.
Don't.
We spent quite a bit of time trying to be sure that that just didn't seem like a dirty old man giving in to this pretty teenager wanting to put her arms around him. Trying to make sure that he was as a character, just careful about what was going on here. So there wasn't lasciviousness that was going on. It was paternal instinct, if we could. I do not think that I would have changed greatly the style in which we shot the show. There was a kind of, it was not a herky-jerky kind of show with quick cuts and nervous camera and stuff like that. There is one scene where we shot handheld when Bruce puts the belt around the headmaster's neck.
What do you want?
I want answers. What is this place?
This place?
Sperling. Who runs it? Who supports what you're doing here?
That we wanted to have a little bit more nervous feeling. There was a purposeful kind of, I hesitate to say languorousness, sounds like nothing benefits storytelling-wise from languor, but there was a kind of quiet to it because of the fact that there was this idyllic circumstance that these kids were in the school. We wanted it to be kind of a dirty secret underneath this reflective pastoral sensibility.
I don't get it. I don't want it to stop. I don't have a problem with your brave new world. I like it.
I think some directors, and they often get good results from this, work on scenes from a kind of, to make the emotional quality of the scene as full-blown every moment as they can. I tend to lay back a little bit and save those moments for story accentuation.
Trust me, there's no warrants out for me.
Of course not.
Think about it. When you ran Thomas Vale, you got nothing, right?
Bruce Greenwood and the central guest star, Bryan Cranston, improvised a bit, and we would write it down, and we called or sent it or faxed it to Larry, and he would massage it or throw it out if he didn't like it, but he was quite open to letting them help get us out of a couple of little tricky, very tricky story points. And I remember everybody being very gracious in Los Angeles about that, which I was grateful for, because in some shows, the idea of an actor having input into the script is anathema, and God forbid, in some shows, a director making too many suggestions like that. It really depends a lot on the show. It's not like a feature film where the director just puts in whatever dialogue he wants if that's what he cares to do. Television series is run quite understandably by its creator because he's got to be with it week after week, if not year after year. And there has to be that single sensibility running it.
A rough whimper insanity. It's, I think we started that episode with the title because Joel, who wasn't particularly computer savvy or anything else like that, had heard the anagram somewhere floating around.
A rough whimper of insanity, it's an anagram, something that Scott discovered, a rearrangement of the phrase information superhighway. God, in a sad way, it really seems to fit.
I mean, Nowhere Man in its core is about a misfit. Tom Vale is sort of, in some ways, the ultimate misfit. Rough whimper, how it came to be, how the character of Scott became to be, I think that was his name. Just another, maybe even more of a misfit in a sense than Tom. And then, in a way, self-imposed. Joel was certainly flying thematically on my coattails, so as we beat these stories out, I was certainly leading the way for where these one-liners or conceptions were going to go because no one else knew what I was doing. This had nothing to do with capabilities. I didn't know what I was doing, but at least I was the guy who was told to do it. I came aboard, I was very excited because I knew what the concept was. I knew it was going to be different, it was going to be unusual. When I was handed the script for Whimper of Insanity, I saw how ambitious it was. It was an incredibly ambitious show, but it was beautifully written. Joel Cerno wrote this particular episode, who went on to do La Femme Nikita and 24. And what really made this episode so special was, I think, number one, the script, which is always where it always starts. People forget that. And number two, the acting. I think this is basically a two-character piece between Bruce Greenwood, who was always brilliant every week. But in this particular episode, he played so well off Sean Whalen, who was the guest star. And most of this are scenes just of the two of them.
And you have no idea how she got into this?
No, I'm not sure. I mean, part of me needs to believe she was pressured. And somehow she did what she did because she was trying to protect me, but... No, part of me just...
It's hard with people. You can't always be sure. I mean, not like computers. Click, click.
Yeah, but computers don't light you up with a look of recognition. You know, they don't brighten when you come into a room.
To be able to keep an energy going and a flow going to the show just of two characters basically inside this house, which was closed off and had all the windows covered and was kind of a very paranoid atmosphere, was really a great credit to the actors who brought the script to life. This particular story finds Thomas Vale on the road, and he's always running from Big Brother, who's always looking for him and is usually just minutes behind him, amazingly enough. And he's working at a pizza parlor in a small town. He delivers pizza to his strange house where there's a guy in there that he can never see. He realizes that other people besides him are living in fear of whatever, and that maybe all of us have a certain amount of fear about paranoia about who's watching, who knows what's going on. Is Big Brother always there?
Hey. Hey, man, you all right?
Don't touch me. Don't touch me.
Okay. Okay.
Just before he leaves, he realizes what the kid is doing, and the kid is basically has enormous amounts of computers and can do things that nobody else seems to be able to do, like break into memory banks and things like that. Once he realizes that, there's a wonderful dialogue about, well, I can find anybody on the net, and he says, okay, find me.
Thomas J. Vale, V-E-I-L.
Of course, he realizes that all his files, almost all of Thomas Vale's files, have been deleted.
Who the hell are you?
I know we got a lot of flack from the fan base, a certain element of the fan base there, because we didn't go high-tech electronic with the videology, the videography in there, the video game stuff.
You know what virtual reality is?
No, not firsthand.
At the time that we made this was way ahead of its time, and doing virtual reality, we didn't really know how to proceed with that. And it really became almost something that I had to envision of what that might look like and what that might feel like.
And, you know, look, I've always said, once a show is out there, no one's interpretation is worse than mine. You know, I have mine, but it doesn't make someone who has a different one different. And I would say the same thing applies to this.
CGI was kind of out of the question, so we really had to do everything on camera. So the first virtual reality problem that I had was to find a perfect location, which I did. It was an amazing place where people actually go to get married to the lake and flowers and whatnot. Once we did that, it was an idea of what photographically this would look like. How could it look real and feel real but not be real? The next problem was, well, do they walk around? Do they have normal function? And I came up with the idea that they didn't, that somehow they floated in air. So in order to do that, we had to build tracks and put like a little floor that they could stand on, and we could secure them on, because now they were going to be moved by the grips on a track, so that all the movement is actually done that way during the scene. Adding smoke and fog and everything we could think of, I think we came up with an amazing vision of what virtual reality would look like in its time. For a show that moves on technology and speed, here was a moment where we stopped basically and had an incredibly emotional moment where he sees his wife, who of course doesn't recognize him, she's just a virtual reality image, but all the emotions come out of what this man has been going through and suffered being away from her, and her having basically forgotten who he was. And it is one of I think, critical moments in the series of great emotional impact. No matter what you do, whether it's film or television, no matter what technology you bring in, if it lacks human emotion, no one's going to care. And I think human emotion is the key to all drama.
Allison, this is Tom.
It's a pleasure to meet you, Tom.
Allison.
I love it. I love what we did because at the base of me, I'm a romantic. And I think the imagery in Rough Whimper is romantic, and it was intended to pull at your heartstrings, not your intellectual strings. I mean, I'm totally into what CGI can do and what we could have done with high-tech graphics. But Nowhere Man, as dark as it was, I don't think was ever cold. The world he was fleeing around in was cold, but Tom was warm. And part of what made him warm was that he had feelings that I could relate to, and hopefully the people watching could relate to.
Allison. Scott, no, don't.
In the script, when they talk about what happens when they do the virtual reality at the end and get inside a computer, it was very basic, you know. I mean, he just said what I just said. Now, how do you figure that out, and what does a computer look like on the inside? It's part of a visualization, which is what a director does. He gets words on papers and translates that to images.
Where are we?
Discarded heat memory, random data that they use to fill the space between files. Wow, they sure went to a lot of trouble to dress this place up.
But this particular picture is actually on a piece of glass.
This is it!
Well, obviously we wanted a long tunnel that was made of plexiglass so that it would carry the shadows, but it wouldn't really have any shape to it because it was a white on both sides of the DP was able to light through in a very virtual looking tunnel that led to this room. And we were trying to figure out, well, what would it look like? I mean, what would files on your computer look like?
Where do we start?
And there's a great moment where he says, oh my God, it's not what you think it is. And here the audience has been waiting weeks to find out what it is. So the beauty of a MacGuffin is that we never know. And that's one of, I think, genius ideas of what the show is about. And of course, just then, when he's supposed to come down to a file and finally reveal to Tom the truth, of course, they find out that they're in there and they start deleting all those files.
I think they're deleting. They're deleting the system. You gotta get out of here.
Get down here, come on!
Tom, go through the door before they finish.
Sean Whalen decides that he would like to basically die in there because he doesn't relate to the outside world, and for him to be a computer genius and kind of be deleted along with the files is a great moment for the character, which I thought was incredibly powerful.
And Scott was just a wonderful character, but Scott was so unfortunate that he couldn't even survive, ultimately. He never had the fight that Tom had. And I clearly the game might have been different. I mean, there were two different people, but Scott paid the price for being too fragile for this world.
Scott! It wasn't real. It didn't happen. It didn't happen. It didn't happen. It wasn't real. It didn't happen, Scott.